Personal growth lies within the unknown. Courage permits you to explore the space. Yes, love that. Hey y'all, what's up? Welcome back to my channel. My name is Gabby if you're new here, and happy new year, y'all. Happy 2024. I don't know about y'all, I'm excited, I'm happy, I'm so lit for this new year, and I'm so excited for this first video of the year. Okay, so y'all see I done made my little tea, and I got it in my SpongeBob cup. I love this cup. It's one of my favorite ones. I don't drink coffee, but I love to have me some tea. This is green tea kombucha, and to me, this is adulting. Okay, this is a part of what adulting looks like. Giving my body good herbs, antioxidants, and all of that, you know, replenishing my cells. And to be real with you, I didn't even know what green tea was until about college, till I was college age. Definitely didn't know what kombucha was. Definitely had never had hot tea, and even when I found out what green tea was in college, I only knew of the Lipton green tea that came in the bottles that you can get from the grocery store. And I say this to get into today's topic, which is feeling like you're still a teenager when you're in your 20s and your 30s. Now, I thought this was just me, and I was saying something to one of my friends a couple of years ago when we were having a conversation, and she was like, girl, I know exactly what you mean. I be feeling like that too. And it took me back a little bit, because I was like, oh shoot, like she be feeling like that too. Because the type of person she is, like, she's very confident, bold, blunt, like straight to the point. So for her to say that just really surprised me, because I thought it was just little old me, you know, in my former people pleasing ways and trying to be nice and this, that, and the third, that was making me feel so small. And then over the course of the years, especially like within the past couple years for sure, I started seeing it more on social media, especially Instagram, where people were saying that they are getting older and they just still feel like they cannot keep up with how they're aging. Like they just don't feel like their age. So I'm like, what in the world? Like, it's not just me. So of course I didn't like feeling this way, and I'm sure if you can relate, you know what that's like too. It's very uncomfortable. You feel small. You don't feel capable of things that you know you should be capable of doing. The things that you are able to do, you feel like an imposter, like somebody else should be doing it. You know, we are grown out here, and we are calling each other girlies. We're walking into our girl areas, leaving girl eras. We're still saying things like getting my big girl job and stuff like that. And there's a certain age that I believe fits certain wording like that. I found myself, when I'm looking for certain things on a platform and I want to see the experience from another black woman, I found myself typing in girl, black girl, and it just dawned on me probably like maybe last year or so. I'm like, why do I keep typing in girl? I'm a grown woman. Life really happens really fast. We go to school, or you know, we finish high school. You either go to school or you get a job. People have kids, they get in relationships, they trying to find a job, you trying to get your own place, and then next thing you know, you 24, you 27, you 32. Like, life just goes so fast. And I think it's so great that we're coming to a point in life now where people are starting to realize that they want to coast more. You know, they don't want to have to hustle all the time. Women don't want to be in their masculine energy 24/7. People just want to be present and enjoy life. And I think a time like that is really when it starts to dawn on you that you're very immature. And I say that with so much love, because that's just what it is inside. Even though we don't come off as immature all the time, like mentally we're still immature, because it's like our brain has not caught up with the rest of us. I would, like, when I was at work, would always attract women that were older than me, like, you know, 20-30 years older than me, that would always kind of take me under their wing. A part of me kind of liked it. I liked having a woman there that would try to help me when I had questions, or would bring me breakfast, or like buy me lunch, and it didn't require me to pay them back. It was giving auntie, and I really enjoyed that. And when I was going through my growth, my changes and all of that, I started realizing that I really didn't want that. I kind of started started feeling ashamed and embarrassed that I liked it. So I had to really question myself, like, Gabby, why are you enjoying this? Like, you're a grown woman with a child, like with a family, with your own money. Like, why are you liking the fact that these people are wanting to go buy you lunch and stuff? Like, you can do that for yourself. And of course, you know, that opened up a whole can of worms eventually for me to see some of the work I needed to do inside. But the biggest thing that I realized was that I still felt like a little girl in my late 20s, still feeling like a little girl. And I stayed pretty far away from my family. They're on the east, I'm on the west. And I started to, even when I started to grow and build and work within myself to get to a place where I felt like a grown person, there were still certain people in my family who, once I got around, when they said certain things to me, they started making me feel like a kid again. And I know that there are so many people who can resonate with this, and I think it's so important for us to understand, first of all, that it's not just you. You're not the only person feeling like this. So many other people are feeling like this. And I think the number one reason we feel like this is because we truly, absolutely were not prepared for life. Now, some people came up in the household, they came up in the environment, they had a community, a tribe, some sort of household that gave them that wholesome, healthy life to prepare them for life, basically. But I think so many of us haven't, and I want to break this down into the categories, the different pillars of life. And I first want to talk about work. Going to school is supposed to set us up and get us ready for work. But school is a social place. You make friends, you have fun, you do sports, but you also do your work. And depending on what type of person you are and your struggles, it will depend on how well or not you do in school. But at the end of the day, so many people go to school, high school and college, and by the time they graduate, they feel like they don't know anything and they're not prepared for work at all. And it's crazy because that environment is supposed to set us up for work. You know, that's why they have us do group projects, write papers, do research, go out in the field and go on field trips and stuff like that. But ultimately, they're not giving us really what we need, and they're not teaching us what we need. Like, yeah, we know we need to be on time for class, but students in high school and college not taking that serious. They skip class and stuff all the time. Like, it's not resonated enough that we need to be on time so that we can understand that it's important to be on time for work. We have to be punctual. We have deadlines that we need to meet. It's like they're setting up the school system for us to do these same type of things that we're going to do in work, but they're not relaying the message that this is getting us ready for work. And then you have a situation where students that do go to college, they get these degrees and they do all these projects and getting these extracurricular activities and everything like that. At the end of the day, like, if you don't have the work experience, you're probably not going to get a job unless you know somebody. You would think that the professors would tell you, or at least in high school they would let you know whenever you get a chance. You may not feel like it, but make sure you volunteer at an office or a place, an organization, wherever you want to get a job. Even if you can go once a week for 1 hour, do that. If they just told us that, so many students or graduates wouldn't go through that revolving door of, I have the knowledge but I don't have the experience. You want me to get the experience, but I can't do that without getting a job, and life is too expensive for me to be your intern for free. So what are we doing here? From jump, we're in school as early as 3 years old in preschool, and these people are not preparing us enough for what's really ultimately to come. So you have these people that either go right into work after school and just start making things shake, or you have people continue to go to school and feel like they just wasted the past 4 to 8 years of their life because they cannot get a job and they have all this debt. I'm not saying that the system set us up to fail, but they definitely don't set us up to prosper. I know what I knew in order to get into college, because I was in AVID. It was a class that prepared us for college, and in that class we took vocabulary tests constantly to study for the SAT and the ACT. We had guest speakers come in and talk to us about college students coming in talking to us, telling us about college. We was able to ask them whatever questions we wanted to, so that at least in some way prepared us. But years later I found out that students in other classes, like, they didn't get that. They say they're preparing us for a job, but they're not really preparing us for a real life job, and it ends up in a lot of frustration and wasted time. So now I want to move into the next thing, which is money. You go to work so you can make money. There is this explosive world going on social media right now, teaching us how to make passive money, start your own business, how to get certain 9-to-5 jobs, enter a field without a degree and just getting certifications. Like, there's so much information out there now, but this information is out there that we're learning from the internet, that we're learning from people who already knew it or who learned it the hard way. We all know by now, they didn't teach us about money in school, and I believe they did not do that for a reason. You see a lot in a lot of these financial videos where people comment, oh, they need to teach us in school. They're not going to teach this stuff in school because they need certain people to live certain lives, to work certain jobs. They do not want everybody to be rich, so they're not going to teach everybody this stuff. You would have to have learned that on your own or from your family and or friends, and that's the key point. This one really falls back to family. We really get our money habits and our money knowledge from the people around us, the people that raise us. If they don't have it, you don't have it. That's just how it works. So a lot of us grow up. I made a video a while ago about money habits that keep people poor, and a lot of that information is from my own personal experience and what I have seen around me, friends and family, like real life stuff. And these things are, it's cyclical. Like, how can you go beyond something that you don't even know you can go beyond? How can you break a barrier and you don't even know that the barrier is able to be broken? That's the thing when it comes to money and the money mindset. You're set up with what your parents have given you. Like, you may have come up in a home where money was never an issue, but you seen your parents spending money all the time and still living check to check, and next thing you know, you living like that too, and you can't figure out why you can't save money. You can't figure out why you're a doctor and you still broke, because you never learned how to manage money, because that type of information was something that wasn't given freely. You know, people kept that stuff to themselves so that they can stay rich and so that you can stay poor, or so that you can stay middle class or lower middle class. There were no resources. You either had to know a person or grew up in it. And all of these mindsets that were put in our heads about work, about money, it's just what we grew up thinking. And now here we are at our big grown ages trying to figure out how to break that stuff down so that we can actually learn how to not only make money and save money, but invest it and have that money build up and grow. You know, like, this is stuff that some people in the right environment are learning from young, from adolescent age. And we're older just now getting put on, and the thought of investing money or trading money scares us. And it's so normal out there to a 15-year-old. And that's just because we didn't get that resource, which is the same thing when it comes to relationships, y'all. Let's get into it. Most of our relationships are trash because we don't know how to have them. Me personally, in my household, there was my mama, my stepdaddy, my big brother, me, my little brother, and my little sister. And all of us had different dads. My stepdad was my little sister's dad. I didn't really feel any negative type of way about my living situation. It just was life, you know, it was normal. But I can tell you that I knew from an early age, I was elementary school age, and I knew that I wanted to be married, and I wanted to have a home, and I wanted to have a nuclear family. I used to think about it. I used to talk about it to my cousins and my friends. They would always be like, "You white." And when I got to the point where I started dating for marriage early. Like, I was not, if you was ever my boyfriend, I was thinking that you could be the one, you was gonna be the one that I married and start this family with, because I had this plan in my head since a little girl. So, you know, I'm in school trying to be well-rounded, trying to get good grades so I can get to a good college, get a good job, get this man, have these babies. Like, I already had the picture, and I was just trying to get everything to put it in a frame, you know. So just thinking about that, you can imagine the type of bull crap I dealt with in certain relationships, trying to make this plan happen, trying to make this thing work. I dealt with things that I should never have dealt with. I dealt with things for far longer than I should have. I didn't know my worth. I didn't know what self-worth was. Like, I knew I was special. I knew I was different. But I used that to try to help my situation. Like, I know now that it was pick me energy. I always imagined pick me energy was like, just imagine yourself as a female in a line of other females. In my head, pick me was always like, come through. You know I'm the best. Don't worry about them. Yeah, I could show you a good time. And that is pick me, but that's not the only way it can show itself. My sort of pick me energy was standing in a line with other women, and I would just be standing there chilling back, but knowing in my head, like, yeah, he gonna appreciate somebody that's chill. He gonna appreciate a woman that got a plan, who wants great goals in life. I don't even gotta do a lot. Because obviously I'm the better pig. Like, that's how I felt inside. But what I didn't know at that time was that was a whole bunch of insecurity and a whole bunch of low self-worth, because you don't even think like that when you know what you really were. I felt like all of my great qualities, or what I thought were my great qualities, would make me clearly a better pick. Like, I was better than other girls and other women, wanting guys to pick me because I wasn't so extra like other girls. I wasn't always asking for stuff, and I wasn't out in the streets and doing this and doing that. And that may have appealed to some guys, but even though that's who I was naturally, I was trying to make that image look even bigger in their minds to make myself look more attractive. I saw myself as the perfect pick, and I don't gotta do too much because, like, I vibes, duh. And I didn't know that was a problem. The same type of things can apply with a man. That's why so many of these young boys they seem chill and they get really extra when girls come around. They become show-offs. They start picking on people to get attention, because we don't know. Like, we don't know how to really healthily interact with the opposite sex. We don't know our self-worth. We don't even know what that means. We don't know self-respect. We don't value our bodies. We don't value our spirits at those young ages, or maybe even now, because we don't know what that looks like. So many of these things go back to the family, go back to the parents. What did you see in your household? Whatever you seen in your household, you either gonna end up reflecting that, or you're gonna try so hard to not get that you are gonna be forcing something that is unnatural. I saw and heard a lot of arguing in my home, so I ended up being a female who would bark back. I never been with the type of dude who cussed at me though. Like, that's not something I was ever for. Like, I'm not about to cuss at you and you're not about to cuss at me. Like, that's just too far. But I also didn't see that growing up, and I knew well enough that I respect myself enough not to allow nobody to talk to me like that. But yelling is very extra too. You don't have to yell at each other to get your point across, but to me, seeing that was normal. We all hurt when we don't learn the right way. At the end of the day, men and women, girls and boys, though we are all humans, we are totally different. We have a very different, like, molecular setup, a biological setup. That's why so many relationships, you have a group of girls and a group of guys. These women could have nothing to do with each other but be friends. These guys can have nothing to do with each other but be the boyfriends of these friends. And these relationships will have all the same issues. There's just some ways that men are, and there's just some ways that women are, and that's just it. Just really think about it. Do you know anything more about men or women, girls or boys, than you knew when you were in middle school or high school? You probably got your heart broken. You probably got played. And that story in the beginning, it planted a seed in your mind, like, oh, this is just how girls be. They crazy. This is just how guys are. They're cheaters. That story began when you were a child, dealing with a little boy, dealing with a little girl whose dad probably wasn't even around. And then we just keep these stories, and now that social media is in the mix, we're just looking in on all these other people's relationships. You really don't even know what's real and what's fake, and we're basing what we should have or our stories on that, when it all comes down to, you gotta heal, you gotta learn about yourself, You got to learn about who you are as a woman, who you are as a man, and then you got to learn about a man, and then you got to learn about a woman. And then when you start dating and interacting with people, then you learn that person specifically. Me and who I am, they and who they are, me as a woman, them as a man. Do we fit? Like, are we compatible? Can we make this flow? Do we have the same connections? Do we have the same morals, values? Like, do we have friendship? Do we get along? But this is stuff we don't know, and this is stuff that we do not see. Yes, guys are highly sexual, so they end up cheating a lot. Yes, it has a lot to do with self-discipline, but it also has a lot to do with them not being mature enough. You know, men want love, but they can't control themselves to a certain type of man. Like, a certain type of man is going to get to a point where he can not only can he control himself, he's not interested in another woman. But so many women have been burned that they think a man like that doesn't exist. You see a healthy looking couple online and you like, I know they're not like that for real, because we take what happened to us and we deflect and we assume that is what everybody else is going through, when we started out in these relationships not knowing what we're doing, not knowing who we were, just so ready to spread the legs, honey, just so ready to get up and grow up and get an apartment so we can do whatever we want to do. It's like, how can you expect to be in your 20s and 30s or 40s and beyond and have a healthy, happy relationship and you don't even know what that is? You just think you know what it looks like from social media and what you want, but you don't even know how to achieve that. And I know when I was going through stuff when I was younger, I would go through stuff with a guy, and then by the time that relationship ended, I was just thinking about what I didn't want. I'm like, I don't want to do that, or do me like this. And every time I got into a next relationship, it was better, but I also experienced hurt and tragedies that I had in a previous relationship, and I couldn't understand why. And then I realized, like, oh yeah, I said I didn't want this in a guy in his next relationship. Cool, that's what happened. I got a guy that doesn't do these things, but he also now does these things. And it didn't take me until years after all of this to realize, because I was always focusing on what I didn't want versus what I did want. And a lot of times what we do want are very superficial things. He gotta be tall, he gotta be slim, or he gotta be muscular, he gotta play sports, he gotta do this, he gotta do that. All this stuff that don't got nothing to do with the heart. I like watching Latoya O'Keefe, and she be like, what that heart do? Okay, period, sis, what that heart do? We don't be looking at the heart. God looks at the heart. And it's so clear to see now why he looks at the heart, because the outside appearance means what? Those muscles gonna do what if those muscles gonna be wrapped around another woman cheating on you? Ooh, I'm just saying. And this goes into the same thing with friends. I was talking about how we make so many of our friends based on convenience. We're too young to just go out there and normally and naturally make friends. We make friends based on the friends that are around us, and that works out, you know, because a lot of times we do have friends that we remain with from when we were young or when we were in middle school or whatever, and that's cool, that's great. Just because we're all stuffed in the same school or the same church or whatever doesn't mean we can't find great friends. We still do. But the issue is that a lot of us aren't taught these life lessons about what happens with these friends. This is probably one of the most solid pieces of friendship advice I got. My uncle told me right before I went to college,
you already got a small circle, and when you get older, it's just gonna get smaller. When you're young, your friend circle starts out like this, and by the time you get older, you graduate college and everything, your friendship circle is gonna be like this.
And I heard him, but it didn't really register. I wasn't used to getting advice like that, but it stuck with me so strong. And as the years started going by, you know, from the moment I graduated high school, there were friends automatically that we just never talked anymore. You know, I went to college and one of my closest friends just ghosted me, cut me off. I'm like, what's going on? What did I do? You know, I'm just checking in, trying to see how she doing. She never texted me back. You know, like, he was right. And these little life lessons help us so much. And this is the type of thing where if you're not reading books, if you're not in the Bible, because the Bible is truly the guide for life, okay? And a lot of the stuff we go through is already in there. But truly, if you don't have older people, like a lot of times we write off what our elders say because we like, man, yeah, whatever, my friend's different, I'm different, you know, I ain't gonna have them problems. And we just being very bullheaded and ignorant when they really do have a lot of knowledge. A lot of adults do project their pain onto younger people though, and try to affect the younger generation in a negative way. But that's another story. We're talking about somebody from a good place with a good heart trying to give you good information. How many adults have you had in your life that gave you real solid information? I know one of my old friends, her mom was like a little older than my mom, and her mom will always say, I forgot what they were called, like little phrases that were really southern. Like one of them I remember is she would say, don't count your chickens before they hatch. Her mama knew so many of them, and I loved hearing stuff like that. You know, we get a lot of knowledge and a lot of insight from this older generation, but when they're not there or when we're not listening, we're missing the opportunity to have a gem or some sort of nugget deposited into our minds. Even if we don't use it at that time, if it's something that strong, it's gonna stay hidden within us, and when that time comes in our life, it's gonna make so much sense what they told us. But when you're not prepared about friendships, it seems like something so like small to be prepared for, but we go through stuff with our friends. We get played, we get betrayed, they do something shady, or they just fall off, or they just ghost us. All of this stuff is normal. Losing a friend, losing a best friend, some people start having feelings for their friends. All of this stuff is normal. It's normal human interaction. Some people are hurt, some people are healed, some people are jealous, some people are envious, some people are just too loving and they get hurt. All of this stuff is normal, but nobody told you. You didn't know, so you had to go through this stuff on your own and really learn the hard way, and many times over and over and over again. And then it comes down to self. The true self, which is really the number one thing in all of this. A lot of us don't even know ourselves, and we don't know ourselves because we never had an opportunity to be ourselves. So many of us millennials and above, the generations prior, were born in certain households where you do what you told, you do what I say, period. I don't want to hear another word. Children are to be seen and not heard. You need to hush. You need to go sit down. You need to do what I said. I don't care what you say. I don't care what you think. And when you hear a lot of this, you know, when you get beatings and stuff like that, it's so funny because I be hearing so many people say, oh, I turned out fine. But did you though? So you telling me you're not dealing with anything that, you know, you wouldn't want your children to bear? If you're holding on to something, or you feeling some type of way that you didn't want that you would never want your children to go through, something happened to you. And that's okay, because something happened to most of us. If you know, and that's great. You know, you feel like you great and you're endured, but you don't know your children though. Your children might not come out anything like you. They might not have the same strength as you, and you're gonna have to teach it to them. And a lot of parents don't realize that. I didn't realize that. I was like very ignorant to the fact of, you know, I knew my children could come out different than me, but I just didn't think that would happen. It's just not something I never even thought about. And now I'm finding myself having to instill emotional regularity into my child. Instill, when I say my child, I'm talking about, well, into both of them. I was really talking about my oldest, but I have a baby too. But I try to guide him through his emotions too, even though he's a baby. I have to try to instill resilience in my oldest child, because there are some things that I had naturally that she just doesn't seem to have. So just because you turned out fine, you know, getting beatings, you don't know what that's gonna do to your kid. Just because you turned out fine getting yelled at, you don't know what that's gonna do to your kids. They're different than you. Like, you don't know what your child is gonna be born like, if they're gonna have a mental disability or a physical disability or any of that. I think all of us just feel so entitled from God to have a full, well-on, beautiful, super healthy, amazing, perfect child, and that's not the case. Having a child is a blessing regardless, but you don't know what type of child you're gonna end up getting, you know. And if you are dealing with stuff inside that you wouldn't want your child to endure, you got to go back to self. So many of us never had the opportunity to really express ourselves, to be what we want to be, to do what we want to do, like to just live in la la land and have a conversation, and our parents just play with us or hear about it. You know, then we grow up so fast, and you know, next thing we know, we hanging out with our middle school friends or our high school friends, and then we're getting involved in peer pressure. You know, if you succumb to the peer pressure, you feel bad about yourself, even if it's something that you don't get caught. And if you don't succumb to the peer pressure, you might feel good about yourself, but you're still putting yourself at risk of being picked on for being the odd person out. And when we don't have a guide of some sort to help us navigate all of these issues, we deal with them by ourselves. We are way too immature as children to take on life by ourselves. So we ended up doing whatever we can to survive. And then when we get older and everything around us is so much better, so much safer, we can't just throw away all that stuff that we packed on to help us get through that time and survive. We find ourselves feeling childish, still feeling like a baby. You could be in a place where you're struggling with your morals and values. What do I want? What do I care about? What do I like? What do I not like? What type of person do I like? What makes me happy inside? These all seem like basic questions that so many people do not know how to answer. Have you ever asked yourself, who am I? I asked myself that a couple of years ago, and I couldn't even decipher what that meant. Like, what does that even mean? I didn't even know who I was. And can you blame me? You put a child in the world with no resources and expect them to figure it all out, and they just grow up and they still confused or lost? Come on. So many people be like, oh, I don't know my purpose. I don't know what I'm supposed to do in this life. And I understand what that's like, but do you even know who you are though? Do you even know what you want? Do you even know what you care about? And I'm not talking about material things that you want. I'm talking about the stuff inside first. Do you know how you want to feel every morning when you wake up? Do you know how you want to feel every night when you go to bed? All of this starts with not being allowed to be ourselves, not knowing how to deal with our internal struggles and our emotions and our frustrations and all of that stuff in a healthy way. But because the people who raised us didn't know, and they didn't know how to deal with it, they just ignored it, or they wrote it off, or they gave you a piece of candy or something to deal with what they didn't know how to deal with. And you can't be mad at them for that. At the end of the day, it all comes down to a lack of resources, a lack of knowledge, and the environment you came up in. None of us really were prepared for life. None of us were prepared for adulting. Life went by so fast for us because we were just so ready to move out. And then when we moved out, we were just so ready to make good money. Just so ready to find love. So ready to have babies. We were so ready for stuff that we weren't even ready for. I think so many of us want the things we want because we think it's gonna fill in some void. It's gonna be that missing piece in our life that makes us happy. When you've been unhappy or depressed or stressed for so long, it's like you think you know exactly what you need to be able to fix the problem, but that's only the surface. That's only the surface. It goes so much deeper than that. And if you didn't grow up with that type of environment, it's okay. Most of us haven't. You can still come through it. You just have to go back to yourself and start learning yourself and healing inside. Slowly start to build a support group. It doesn't have to be in person. Like, so many people these days have internet friends. True, real connections from real people that maybe one day you will meet in real life. And at the end of the day, like, when you are starting from scratch and you don't have none of that, you don't have a supportive family or loving friends or any friends at all, or you're just alone, you're never alone. You got God. I have a promise Bible, so it breaks up a lot of scriptures and Psalms and Proverbs. There is so much knowledge in there. There is so much knowledge in the Bible, period, that you could get if you can't get it from anybody else. There is a scripture in the Bible that talks about, oh my gosh, there is a scripture in the Bible that specifically talks about the type of man you should avoid. Women can be gullible, and he will basically wrap you up around his finger and use you and abuse you. There is a scripture in there. I'm gonna see if I can find it, because I gotta read this thing to y'all. Because I mean, like you wouldn't think that the Bible can give you you wouldn't think that the Bible can give you relationship advice, but the Bible has all the relationship advice in the world, I'm telling you. So this is 2 Timothy chapter 3 verse 2 through 7. It says, "For men will be lovers of themselves, lovers of money, boasters, proud, blasphemers, disobedient to parents, unthankful, unholy, unloving, unforgiving, slanderers, without self-control, brutal, despisers of good, traitors, headstrong, haughty, lovers of pleasure rather than lovers of God, having a form of godliness, but denying its power, and from such people turn away. For of this sort are those who creep into households and make captives of gullible women, loaded down with sins, led away by various lusts, always learning and never able to come to the knowledge of truth. Come on now. Come on now. Was that not a word? Was that not a word? That was advice right there, straight from the Bible, that can be applied to real life. If you are in your 20s, your 30s, even your 40s, 50s, and you still feel like a teenager, you still feel like a little kid inside, you got to go back to yourself. Turn back into yourself. Go find out what God said about you, and go get you some self-respect. Go get you some self-worth, and start speaking those affirmations. There is power in the tongue. When I was going through this process of really trying to embed in myself and understand and live by the fact that I'm a grown woman, I had to stand in front of the mirror and look at myself and say, I'm a grown woman. You are a grown woman. When I was talking to people, after I would get off the phone with them, or after I would be done talking to them, and I was back in a place where I was by myself and I was thinking about the conversation or whatever, whether I felt like it went well or it went bad, I would start saying to myself out loud, I'm a grown woman. I'm a grown woman. I am grown, period. Out loud. Reiterating how old I am to myself, and reiterating the fact that I am a grown woman. You are not a little boy. You are not a little girl. And if you feel that way inside, and if your behaviors are acting out an age that you not are, you have to reaffirm in yourself and look in your mirror, look in the mirror and tell yourself, you really have to remind yourself of how old you are. You have to tell yourself how old you are. You have to think about the things that you've been through and understand that you are doing things that a child should not be doing. You are doing things that grown people do. Even if you're doing things right now that you were doing as a child that you shouldn't have been doing as a child, that was not normal. You are grown now. And as small and petty as it sounds, you have to tell yourself that sometimes. You have to tell yourself that you're grown. You have to do this work. Even if you feel afraid or you don't have the bandwidth, or you know, whatever your situation is, or where you do not step into the Bible, you can pray. You ask God to help you. He can pull you out of that. But you got to understand, if you really want to go to where you want to go in your life, if you really want to be free, you got to understand that you're not a child anymore. You cannot operate as a child. When you are a child, you do the things that children do. When you grow older, you leave your childlike ways in the past. You're grown. Feeling like a kid in your elder age is because we didn't really have the opportunity, so many of us, to really live freely like a kid. So many times that we got hurt when we were a kid, so we're constantly replaying those things in our heads, or we still hold on to those feelings. But when you start healing and you start letting all that stuff go and you break free from all that, you can really embody your true presence of who you are today. An adult. When you start realizing and understanding that you were never prepared to be an adult, then you can start moving forward. You didn't have the tools, you didn't have the resources, you didn't have the knowledge, but you can get it now. Because feeling like a teenager, feeling like a little kid as a grown person is very uncomfortable, and it creates very insecure feelings. But it's 2024. It's time to grow up, and it's time to glow up. Shoot, and where I came from, I know if I can do it, you can do it too. I know this was a long one. I wasn't expecting to have such a long video, especially at the beginning of the year, but this was something that I really felt like could be very helpful and could be a blessing to somebody. I pray that it reaches whoever it needs to reach, so that you can make 2024 free and prosperous and wholesome. That's it for today, y'all. I really hope y'all enjoyed this video. I love y'all so much, and until the next one, and peace and love. I'm out.